Talking to Customers, Customer Discovery, prepared for and presented at the 2017 Square One Entrepreneurship Training Program. Square One is a program of the Center for Emerging Technologies. CET is an affiliate of the Cortex Innovation Community. Square One is funded in part by the Missouri Technology Corporation.
Basically, for you to be successful, you need to be connecting and making sales and making a positive impression on your customer or your client. Also known as the people who need what it is you have to offer. My job as a user experience director is to help you succeed by focusing on who your customer and who your clients are and what their actual needs are. Because you can have the greatest product in the world, but if your customers can't find you, if they don't know what your product is, if they don't know how to use your product, what happens? Right, you don't succeed. Nobody buys your product. So, before we get started, I have a couple questions. How many of you are actually involved in your first product, services, IT launch? Your first entrepreneurial launch? So it looks like about half of you are first timers. How many of you people have already created your user profile, your ideal customer? Ooh, not quite so many. How many of you actually have defined how many different types of customer or what your market niche might be? Ooh, even fewer. Okay, so what we're going to talk about right now today is how you talk to and engage with your customers and kind of why it's important. One of the things I've just done is a very informal customer interview because you guys are my clients today. And what I know is that we have a lot of information to go through and not much time to go through it. But what I'm hoping is that by the end of our time together, that you will all feel so confident that we will be able to do a little exercise together and let you guys get a taste of talking to customers and clients. So hopefully I'm going to push this the right direction. Let's see. Ha! Why customer discovery? And you'll notice that I will use the terms user research interchangeably with customer discovery because to me it's all about people. It's about the people you're trying to reach. Now, we do customer discovery or user research for a number of things. To inform, that is to define maybe your product. If you have, how many people are consumer product goods? What's your product?
Mine's a non-alcoholic beer.
Awesome. So he has a non-alcoholic beer. He might need to define what types of flavors his customers like, or do they prefer a hoppier beer or a wheat beer? There may be things he wants to define about his product before he finalizes. He also might want to define how many different types of beers he offers. Who here has a bioscience? And what is your product, sir?
A conjugate vaccine, so vaccines.
A vaccine of some sort. So you may need to refine. You may want to talk to your clients or talk to your potential customers, and they could be individual people or they could be manufacturers of medicine. And you may need to find out what do they have existing right now. Can you complement it? Do you need to change your vaccine so that it works or is amenable with this other vaccine that has to be given, for example, right? So that's a reason for refining our product. And then we have to validate. And validate is perhaps the most important reason you talk to your customers. And what kind of validation do you think you might need to do for your product or service? Anybody have an idea?
Is it necessary?
Is it necessary? That's a great one. Who has a prototype, a physical prototype made? Wow, look at all you guys. So with your physical prototype, you might want to validate that your packaging has the right information that's going to make your client want to buy it, right? You may want to validate that, well, what is your product? Can you tell me?
So our is two kind of products. One is smart chair cover which detects like agitation, comfort, other emotional status of the person. And there is an iPad-based questionnaire for cognitive.
Cool. I'm going to think about the SmartPad chair cover you were talking about. So you might need to validate that this is something that people want by proving that by sitting in this smart chair, it alerts me and lets me know, oh, I have to stand up and move because I'm not paying enough attention because I'm getting tired, and the smart chair is going to tell me this. You may also have to prove that the materials that you're making your smart chair cover off actually work for the people who are going to be using it, who are your target market. So these are the primary reasons we do customer discovery or user research: to inform about our product so we can make it better, to refine, to make it better, to innovate, to improve, and to validate, to show people that, hey, the product I have has market interest, the product I have is actually useful and usable. So, the first question I have for all of you, and I'd like for you to actually take a moment to write down 3 to 5 questions right now that you want to know from your specific customer. I want to see everybody writing Ahad. Oh, you're typing. Okay, good. I want you to think about, as you're writing down these questions, who is it that you want to answer your questions? Get a sharper picture of who it is that you need to talk to, who your client is. If I have an energy beverage drink and I want to sell it to teenagers instead of a soda, then I know that I probably want to talk to teenagers, but I might also want to talk to their mom to see what's important to their mom. So think about who you want to talk to. Think about how is the best way to reach the people who have the questions to your answer. So if your question is, wow, what age group of people really does my product apply to? You might need to look for your answer in a different way than if my question is, hey, is it easy for a 4-year-old to use this educational device, right? There are different people. So think about the who and the how you're going to talk to them. The other thing I would say is when you're planning an interview, particularly if it's a one-on-one interview or a survey, you don't want to ask more than about 15 questions, because if you ask more than about 15 questions, you're going to lose interest. People are going to not give you as much depth or detail, and also you're just going to be using too much of their time. Time is a really important thing to all of us. I don't know anybody who has enough time to sit in a room and talk 3 hours about a widget. I just don't know anybody. So has everybody written down 2 or 3 questions? Awesome, good. I want you to hold on to those because we're going to come back to them later. So once we have our questions, then we got to figure out which kind of research tools we're going to use to reach our client. We're going to focus tonight on interviews, direct client conversation, but I wanted to tell you about a couple other tools that you can also use because sometimes they may be more valuable. That first tool is, or research method, is statistical information. This is your gross demographics. So if you have an electronic stimulation device, you might want to see how many people, and it's for pain management, you might want to know how many people in the United States go see a doctor for back pain. This is going to be raw numbers and raw statistics. But if there are only 1,700 people in the United States who go to a doctor for chronic back pain, which of course we know there's a lot more than that, but this is an example. There's only 1,700 people. That means your maximum target, your maximum sales is 1,700. So maybe you're too specific. Maybe your back pain electrostimulator that only goes between the 2nd and 4th herniated disc. I'm making up some terms here. All you bioscience people, please forgive me. But you know, maybe it's too specific. Maybe you need to broaden the focus of your product. or retarget and see where your broader market audience is. Because you do get high numbers from statistics. You'll get a broad stroke picture. Oh my gosh, we have 17 million people who report back pain. That means that's validated. That's given me some information that I can use about my product. A second form of discovery is what we call behavioral discovery. This can be done through surveys. Are you shopping for a car in the next 1 to 3 months, 3 to 6 months, 6 to 12 months, 1 to 2 years, right? This is broad behavioral research. It can often be done via surveys. It can often be narrowed down to be specific to your brand or your product. And it can actually use some actual use cases. For example, with my energy drink or my non-alcoholic beer, you might want to ask some survey questions like, you're going out with friends, but you're the designated driver. Would you rather have a soda or a non-alcoholic beer? I mean, there are lots of ways. Again, these are very broad, though. They're not super specific, but they are more specific than a general demographic information. What they do, again, that they can't help is they can't give you that unique individual information that you can actually take and so quickly act upon for your product or service. And that's when we get to kind of where we're going to focus on tonight, which is experiential experience. Again, research user experience is all about talking to people and finding out the most in-depth, detailed, and direct information in response to your product or service that you can get. It's a small sample set. Honest to goodness, generally speaking, you don't need to interview more than about a dozen people to know if you're on target, on track, and if you have something that's valuable to people. When you get into how many people of you are doing IT or digital projects, and how many of people have iterated your prototype? So we've got some. So when you go through your prototype testing, it only takes 5 people to let you know absolutely what's not working. Because by the time 5 people have gone through your prototype, they will have found almost 90% of your errors that are critical for you to address. Does not mean that they have every little detail down, but it only takes about 5 people walking through your path to determine, oh, this is not working right here. Won't always tell you what is working, but 5 people will let you know what's not working. It's pretty amazing and 100% accurate. One thing about these one-on-one interviews, and it doesn't matter if you're doing a prototype or if you're showing them something, if you're having them do a card sort, you're going to get there once over what they actually do. And that's okay, because with your product or service, what do you want to do? You want to over-deliver. You want to delight and satisfy your client. You want to anticipate your client's needs and wants. So when you have an interview and somebody's saying, oh, I really wish that when I clicked here, it would combine all the information from the previous 3 pages and create a picture of what that might look like, right? They're going to tell you what they want as well as what doesn't work or make sense to them. That's a very important thing, because that again allows you to go back to refine or to validate or inform. So, customer interviews, the most personal and in-depth kind of one-on-one interaction we can get. That's what we're going to focus on, and we're going to focus on kind of a how-to. I want to give you guys steps. I want to tell you guys what to do, and then I'm going to have you guys interview each other, really. So why are one-on-one interviews so valuable to us? Because they're focused on you. They're focused on evaluating what you have right now, what's lacking, what's working, really looking at and evaluating your solution, or sometimes your problem if you don't know whether to go left or right with your product, right? This can help you with your very specific 15 questions. You can go in there and you can determine, oh, Everybody that I'm talking to really wants a cinnamon flavored non-alcoholic beer. I have not put that on my considerations list. I need to look into this. They are experiential. Experiential just means that they resonate the most deeply. You're going to get the most honest results, more so than if you do a focus group. You'll get the most honest results, the most reliable information from these one-on-one interviews. They consider your existing and potential customers. A lot of times if you do a survey or if you do a focus group, you're only reaching out to your current customers and your current customer base. You'll want to reach out to more than just your current customers. It could be people who've indicated an interest. It could be a mailing list of biomedical device providers that you've purchased. Or you could also hire a recruiting group. There are a number of recruiting groups around that you could hire, and you could say, look, I want to talk to doctors who use electronic stimulation for neurology, not for back pain or spinal uses, right? You can very target and then get that right group of people. I will say, even though I said you only need to talk to about 15 people, you probably need to invite 100 to 150 people so you get enough responses. If you get too many responses, hallelujah, that's great. If you have the time and resources to interview all those people, go ahead. But again, remember that really if you get that 15, maybe 25 individual interviewers, you're probably going to get 90 to 95% of the information you will get from 150 people. Interviews and information can be collected formally and informally. And the reason I'm telling you this is because particularly if you have a product or if you have something, maybe you're going to an IT expo and you want to introduce your new system for managing nurses who do split shifts, and so you're going to this IT expo, you can have your questions ready. Whenever you are going out to speak to the public about what you do and why you do it and why you have a passion for it, always have 3 to 5 questions that you want to have answered. Always have it. Because you and I could have a conversation and I could be wanting exactly what you have and you won't know it. But if you always have a couple questions, it's like always having your elevator pitch ready, right? You don't leave the house without your elevator pitch. Don't leave the house without 3 to 5 questions that you want answered. Just don't. One-on-one interviews, again, 10 to 12, probably the most you need. One thing that's really important, if you invite people in, you have to be respectful and pay them for their time. This does not mean, oh, I want to give you a 6-pack of my non-alcoholic beer, which they may want, and you may want to give that to them anyway, but respect their time. Show them that you value them by paying them. I suggest a minimum of $50, if you can afford it, for your 30-minute interview. This actually needs to be communicated to your interview subjects ahead of time. You can also, if you're doing something more informal, like if you're out at a IT expo and you're talking about your stuff, then of course it's nice to give them a product or a sample. That's okay, but when you are doing actual sit-down one-on-one interviews, you need to respect your customers and pay them for their time. Avoid recruiting your best friend. Avoid recruiting your aunt who loves your product. Avoid recruiting people whom you've talked to about your product over and over and over again, because generally speaking, they're going to repeat back to you what you want to hear, and that's not going to be as valuable. Finally, the easiest part, and this is what we're going to get into now, is really, it's simple. It is 5 easy steps. 5 easy steps to conducting your interviews. Step 1, open. Thank the customer for participating in their interview. So important. Start out on a positive. Thank them for your time. It shows, again, that you respect them. You respect time and the time that they're making for you. Tell them why they are here, what you are wanting to find out. Today, I would like for you to walk through the app I've created to make it easier to monitor your moods so that we can adjust your medicine. What I'd like to know from you is it easy to follow? Do you understand the questions I'm asking? Right? You just tell them very straightforward up front in a summary, 30 seconds. This is why we're here today. Today we're here to talk about Jeff's non-alcoholic beer and why it's different from every other non-alcoholic beer you've got. That's enough. Today we're here to talk about vaccines and your history with vaccines. Whatever it is, give them just a brief summary. Remind them that you want their honest opinion, and as a matter of fact, there are no wrong answers. Now, the important thing here is that you have to take your ego and your love and your passion for your product, and you got to leave it at the door before you start that one-on-one interview. You should never argue back with somebody you're interviewing. You should never lead them by saying, well, don't you think you'd really like to have a vaccine for this? No leading, no arguing, and no judgment. So when I say to you, well, frankly, I don't believe in vaccines at all, you might make a little note. Try your best not to go, what kind of an idiot are you, right? It's so important. It's so important that you remove yourself. And this is why, in all honesty, if you can afford it, hire someone. Call me, email me. I have no vested interest in your product. If you can't afford it, hire somebody else to moderate your interviews. If you can't, practice. Find some people to practice your interviews on. Find somebody who you can trust to challenge you and to give you all the wrong answers so that you can practice getting used to getting negative feedback or negative answers, or having somebody say, well, I don't even understand why I would need a vaccine, right? You have to just be comfortable with pushback without ever judging or filling in the blanks for them, because that's not why you're here. You're honest to goodness here to listen to them and see what they tell you so that you can take that information and refine and improve and make sure that when you do introduce your product to a larger market, you're talking in language that the people who are looking for your product are using. So he's got immunization control delivery system, but I call that a vaccine shot, right? Make sure you're not calling it immunization delivery system if nobody understands what that means. This is some of the stuff you can find out through your interviews too, what that natural language is. Listen and make notes about how your responses, how are they describing back to you what you're showing them. Make notes of those words. If you hear keywords, if 5 people say, hey, this beer has kind of a sweet taste to it, I don't know if I like sweet taste in my beer, you got to look into that, right? Because you don't want, if 5 out of your 15 people are like, that could be a third of your target market right there saying, ooh, no, it's too sweet, I don't want it, I'm not interested. Move to the task. Believe it or not, we spent all that time talking to them and we haven't even got to the task at hand. So, to move to the task at hand, the first thing you want to do is you want to confirm, because you've got a list of people you're interviewing, confirm that this is the right person. Confirm, yes, I'm speaking to Ben, I'm supposed to be speaking to Ben right now. Then, I'll ask Ben, so, I understand that you're here because you have persistent chronic back pain. Is that so?
It is.
He says yes. That's great, then we know I'm talking to the right Ben. But what if Ben had said, you still proceed with your interview? right? Because again, you're valuing their time. You still proceed through your interview, but you need to make a mark that, oh, this is not the guy I meant to interview. Because you might not get enough responses. You might have to try and reach out to a few extra people. And it does happen sometimes that somebody responds to your invitation to come speak to you, and they respond and they're all excited, and they get there and they're like, non-alcoholic beer? I don't even drink beer. I only drink non-alcoholic whiskey. If such a thing exists. So again, you want to be kind, you want to talk to him, you don't want to say, oh, I'm sorry, you're wasting my time, let's leave. Because, gosh, that gives everybody kind of a bad impression and a bad taste in their mouth, right? So go ahead and interview them, but just make a little note. You want to ensure that your interview subject is comfortable and relaxed, because if they're uptight or tense, the chances of them not answering honestly just increase. So ask them, hey, how are you doing? Would you like a glass of water before we get started? Okay, are you comfortable? Gosh, did it take you a long time to get here tonight? I know the weather outside is horrible. Oh, fantastic. Well, I'm so glad that you could make it in. Today, you know what? I'd like for us to talk about your reaction to my prototype of this new color matching app for fashion. Does that interest you? Do you like to buy clothes? Oh, me too. What's your favorite store? You don't have a favorite? You know what? I am a sucker for Target. You like Target? Yeah, isn't it great now that they've started expanding their colors and their sizes, and they have those new mannequins and all. Establish a rapport. Ask a few questions that are related, because remember, I'm going to talk to her about a fashion color matching app. So I'm going to talk to her about fashion for a little bit. I'm going to talk to you, you're talking about vaccines, so maybe you want to talk about travel or different, use cases for a vaccine. Your smart chair, what is its purpose? Is it because you're tired and fatigued at the end of the day? You're going to talk basically a few questions that are general in nature, but that narrow us and get us into the path. Once we've gotten into the path, asking that general question that leads to your specific product or service, then we can really go into the meat of our interview. And we've probably asked 2 or 3 questions already, so now we're down to about a dozen or less questions. Don't ever forget that. You don't want to ask too many extra questions, even when you don't have that many questions. Okay, so a couple of things we can do that are really easy is ask open-ended, non-leading questions. Does anybody know what I mean by an open-ended, non-leading question? No. That is not an open-ended, non-leading question. No. So an open-ended, non-leading question is one. Open-ended means it cannot be answered with a yes or no question. A non-leading question would be, so do you prefer white, dark, or milk chocolate? Dark. Okay, now I've led you down to a path that's only given you 3 choices. If I said to you, do you like chocolate?
I like strawberries.
You like strawberries, great. Do you like any other kind of sweet treats or just strawberries? Twinkies also, great. So now we've established a rapport that's actually giving me real information from you that I want, rather than my leading you and saying you like what kind of chocolate when you don't even like chocolate. Great. A prototype review. Some of you said you have prototypes, and I know we're going to hear about prototyping in the next session. There are a variety of prototypes that you can use. There's usually 3 most common types of prototypes. One is the digital prototype. This could be a website. It could be just a user path. You want them to complete 3 to 5 tasks. So, can you tell me about the special offer? They're going to have to look at your prototype page and find where the special offer is and click on it. If you wanted to, here's my travel website. If you wanted to go to Europe, what would you do first? Hopefully I want you to find my big map and you click on Europe. But maybe you go up to the top and you click on travel destinations and you don't see Europe, and you'd be like, well, this is what I want. Then I'm going to say to you, oh, so what did you expect to find here? When somebody goes down a path that you don't expect, it's okay. That's more learning for you. Ask them, oh, what did you expect to find out here? Or, oh, what made you choose this path? A physical prototype. What 3 to 5 things do you want to learn? Is your chair comfortable? Does your beer, non-alcoholic beer, appeal? Is the label attractive? Does the label clearly communicate to you that this is non-alcoholic beer? Right? Those 3 to 5 key things you want to know about your physical prototype. Again, you don't want to go over about 5 because many of your questions will have a follow-up question, right? If I ask you what color do you want the package to be, you could just pick your favorite color. And I might say, well, why would you want that color? And you'd say, oh, well, for this chair, I'd like a green color because it feels so natural and ergonomic. I don't know if that's true, but that might be what they say to you. An emotional prototype basically means when you show somebody a picture or a series of pictures and you want to get their response and what they really feel about it. You can ask about colors. You can ask about wording. You can ask them, how does this package make you feel compared to this package? Again, what we're trying to understand is their intention and whether the product or package resonates with them, whether it's something they are likely to try. Next, summarize. So you're going to provide a quick summary of what just happened. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for spending time with me. I think it's really interesting that today I learned that you like to go to Target, but that you really prefer colors of clothing that are in the more neutral and natural tones, and you don't so much like bright tones. Did I hear that correctly? Great, thank you so much. I'm going to let you know that we're using your information because we're going to feed it into the trend analysis so that we can get a better color variety for our women's clothing line buyers. I really appreciate the time. The other thing I'd like to know is, do you have any questions for me? Oh, you'd like to know when you could see these color patterns on the website? So to be honest, we're still in the early discovery phase, and we're just now sketching out how we're going to present that information to you. So I believe that it'll be 3 to 6 months before we have this tool available. Would you like to sign up on our mailing list so I can send you information for when the tool is available?
Yes, I would.
Great! If you can just give me your name and information. Awesome. Thank you so much, Sharon. And now, we'll send that to you. If you don't get something from us by January, you can follow up with me directly. My email is tinafarmer@yahoo.com. Again, it's a two-way conversation we're having here. Close and thank them. Sharon, thank you so much for your time. I want you to know that the woman at the front desk is going to have a check for you on your way out, and my assistant, Desiree, is going to escort you out. Again, you sure you don't have any other questions? Awesome, thank you so much. Thank them. Make sure somebody escorts them out of the building or the room. That sounds kind of weird, but you don't want to end this good conversation leaving them with a bad impression of, oh, and then they just left me to wander around and find my way out of this building, and I'm not sure where I am. Always, always ensure that you open and close with a positive impression. Be personable, be natural, be yourself, but be your friendliest version of yourself without being creepy. Then, as soon as they've been escorted out, before you have them before I say, okay, now I'm done with Sharon, Ricky's next, Desiree, give me just a second. Could you hold on to Ricky for 1 minute so I can go in, write your immediate impressions down, and immediately after your interview, write down your first impressions. What you feel, where you learned something important. If the prototype didn't work for the second path, I mean, the first path was great because the first path was just seeing if you could find how to register. But the second path, adding something to my cart, didn't work. I better get that worked on. You got to make those notes. Or, gosh, I keep asking people to go add things to their cart and they can't find a checkout or a shopping cart. They don't understand that wish list is the same as a shopping cart, so maybe we better change our language. Again, just write down your initial notes right away, and then you're ready for the next person. So why is it important? The skill, interviewing customers, is a skill that not only distinguishes you, but it will set you up for success. If you actually take the time to develop meaningful, relevant questions, if you make sure to thank and explain why we're here, and then ask open-ended, non-leading questions, and if you honestly thank them for their time, the information you're going to get back is going to be actual applicable information that you can use tomorrow to improve your marketing message, to maybe need to refine your target market. Like I've been talking to Sharon all this time, and really I should have been talking to Tonya. I should have been talking to Tonya. You know, I mean, you got to learn. Every time we ask questions, it sets us up to learn more, to refine, and to be better positioned for success. So what I'd like to do now is go over a couple tips for a good interview, and then I want us to break up and really quickly try this out, okay? So the most important tips for being a good interviewer, and there are more in your handout, got a whole long list of moderator tips, but be personable, always maintain a positive attitude. Use a conversational tone and use common terms, avoid jargon. So again, the immunization delivery device, if I know it is a vaccine shot, call it a vaccine shot. Remind your customer that there are no right or wrong answers, and sometimes you have to circle back and do that again, because you will get a lot of people who want to please you. Why? Because in a one-on-one situation, we both want to be pleasers. That's just human nature. Ask probing questions without leading the customer to an obvious answer. Avoid questions that can be answered yes or no. Avoid judgment, and never, ever, ever, ever argue with or question a customer's opinion. Again, if necessary, say, what makes you feel this way? What would you expect? What would you prefer? Easy questions that don't have a yes or no answer, but hopefully they will help you also avoid being like, oh, no, you didn't. Finally, your energy and enthusiasm will shine, but never advocate. Again, leave your ego at the door. You love your product. That's why you're here right now in this class, because you love what you've done, you love what you're doing enough to put your time, your heart, your soul, your money into it. You are an advocate for your product, but not today. Not when we're doing interviews. We are a neutral party. Okay, let's give this a try. If everybody could take 1 minute to find somebody in the room that you don't already know and pair up. Paired up? Can I have everybody's attention again? Okay, time out, my turn. Yeah, I can't do it today. Okay, class, square ones, even you in the back corner in the gray shirt. Yep. Hi, what's your name? Me? Yeah. No. You're Rick, and what's your name? With an A? Okay, so you're person A, and Rick, you're person B. So if you all could figure out by your first name who's person A first in the alphabet, person B is second in the alphabet. Ready? Okay, good. I'm sure we've done it. We're going to have 2 sets of questions.
Okay, so you're A and I'm B.
Awesome. I'm going to give you two different sets of questions. The first set of question is person A to ask of person B. Second set is person B to ask of person A. You're each going to have 3 minutes to conduct your interview. The first, person A, your interview is the favorite color interview. Think of your favorite color, yours. Now, write down 3 questions to ask of your interview person without using a color to try and determine if they also like your favorite color. So I can't say to Ahad, Ahad, do you like purple? Because purple is my favorite color. But I could say, Ahad, do you like colors that are brighter or colors that are more natural and neutral?
Brighter.
Brighter. Okay, so now I can ask another question going along those same lines, trying to get to figuring out if he also likes the color purple without asking him if he likes the color purple. Try not to use questions that can be answered with a yes or no. For the fourth question, ask them what they think your favorite color is, and you write down what you think their favorite color is. So person A, you have 1 minute to write down your questions, and then I'll say go, and then we'll go over the same thing for person B. Okay, now if every person A could just ask their person B what they think their favorite color. So person B, tell person A what you think their favorite color is, and write that down. Part of this experience is to learn that it's not as easy as it seems to do an interview, and you really have to think about your questions and the answer you're trying to get. So part of this. So how many people got to the point where the person they were interviewing told them what they thought their favorite color was? And did the person who told you their favorite color, did they get it right? Did anybody have the person get right and guess your favorite color? You did, all right, good job. So you guys asked some great questions. Yes, ma'am?
My question was this an example of how hard it is to kind of figure out what
Yes.
you like or dislike?
It's an example of how hard it can be to do a one-on-one interview without leading people to your answer, without asking yes or no questions, so that you can start. Now when you go to sit down and write your own questionnaire, you're going to have this little frustrating experience to go back on and to think, gosh, I better make really specific questions. The more specific but not yes or no answered questions you can provide, the better your results, the better the information. So this is really just to show you that it's not always, it seems easy to follow those 5 steps.
How you gonna know what a person really likes if you don't ask them with a yes or no question?
The problem with asking them with a yes or no question is that you're demanding an answer, and most people want to please you, so they want to give you the yes answer. So you need to ask questions. If it's about taste or flavor, say they're tasting, you can say, so did that taste more sweet or more savory to you? Do you prefer sweet or savory taste? What are some of your favorite flavors? Then you can wrap up and say, what did you think about this product? Oh, I liked it. I liked it because I like sweet flavors and it had just a hint of cocoa in it. Right? So you want to lead to where they give you more in-depth information. Now, I don't know if we have time to do one more exercise or not.
If we can just do person B, I guess we're switching to person B, correct?
Yes.
I don't have to be our grandma.
Yep, good. So really quick, person B, it's your turn. You've just created and invented a really super new pen. Do you have a question? Or you're just showing me your super new pen? Awesome. So think of 3 characteristics about that pen. Think of how much you would pay for that pen. Then as soon as you're ready, I want you to ask person A some questions about, describe the pen to them, and then you can ask them, what would you expect to pay for this? And see if your description actually led them to say your price point or a different price point. Ready, go. How many people had a match within $1 for their price point? Awesome. Did anybody have an exact price match? 1, 2, great job. Good jobs describing. So, describing. So basically, now you guys have a little bit of experience conducting some one-on-one interviews with people that you don't know all that well. I hope that was helpful. I want to leave you one last thought, and then we'll have some very quick questions, like 2 minutes. One last thought. Repetition equals perfection. Your product, your questions, nothing that you guys are doing is a set it and forget it. Only Ranoko comes up with that, right? Or Ronco, whatever, Ron Pape. There is no such thing as a set it and forget it proposition. You must continuously research. That means using statistical information, using actual user behavior, using product response surveys. You must regularly research through direct one-on-one interviews and focus groups, and you must refine as needed. So when I find out that the color matching app that I've developed doesn't make much difference to Sharon, but to Tonia, who's getting ready to get married, it makes a huge difference because she has a whole wedding party from 47 different states that she's trying to coordinate because the girl has 43 bridesmaids, and it's an incredible wedding of the century. She's trying to coordinate everybody's colors. This app will help her because she can send her colors to her friends and the app, and they can all say, oh yeah, this is the right color. She's not going to get mad at me for making her pictures ugly. So then I need to refine and retarget my app to the right person. So always research continually, research regularly, and refine as needed. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm not near the prototyping stage yet. I'm really far away from that. So my question to you is, when you're starting to talk to customers, you don't necessarily have a concept that's fully developed. It's really an idea. What kinds of questions could you be asking, or what kind of information?
Can you tell me a little bit more about your product or service briefly?
It's a smart business card and a network management application.
So if you had a way to more easily connect your business with other businesses, what would that look like to you? Right? You can ask, again, if you have defined your product or service well enough, then ask questions that describe the product or service, but are open-ended to have people tell you how they envision it. Then see how well you're aligned. If they say, oh gosh, you know what would be really great is if my phone could just bump against his phone and then we could send information, well, that's a different type of app then. You know what would be awesome is if I had a handy Rolodex where I could just type in somebody's name and then send their stuff.
Not a question, just a comment. That sounds like Tina just described what we talked about last week about value propositions and features.
Very much so, yeah. Start with your benefits, your features, a good description of what you envision.
Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, so the value proposition of the business card app is sort of the question that Tina asked,
Exactly.
which is how do you go about connecting your business to other businesses? And a lot of people want to accomplish this, but they might not necessarily know that they want to accomplish it through an app that does it automatically for them. And finding out this level of customer discovery by asking this open-ended question about the value proposition might give you some good ideas about how you're going to develop the product or target user.
And the most unhappy thing would be if everybody said, oh, I just like business cards, right? Any other questions?
Yeah, so at what phase do we do this? Because again, what if it's, if we're interviewing 50 to 100 individuals, what happens if one of them chooses to steal the idea or, because again, a non-disclosure, I have a bunch of them.
They're not going to steal it.
Well,
They're not going to steal it.
If your idea is so great that you think somebody's going to steal it, don't give them enough details that they can replicate it. But the truth is, they're not going to steal it.
Within your tracks, you can talk about how to talk about your product. But if you are not sharing enough, you're asking open-ended questions to elicit feedback on the value proposition. You're not really sharing all that much about you, because what you're not doing is going, I made this wonderful thing, it does this and that, don't you want to use it? You're saying, the last time you tried to do X and Y or Z, how did you do it? How did it make you feel? If it could be better, if it could be this, if it could be that, like, you want to get them to talk about it. So you're doing this early on, and often and repeatedly.
And just to go back to the very upfront, why we do customer service, what you're talking about is to inform, to define, focus, and set expectations for what you have, right? If you don't have it created. What you're talking about is to validate, to prove, track, and measure that what you have is ready to go to market. There are different reasons for doing customer discovery or one-on-one interviews. There's never, however, a good reason not to do it.
Amen.